Patrol, ladies and gentlemen, episode 4, Casey Patrol. And it's your boy Icon with a little DC TV, and thank goodness for that ending because I had no idea where this episode was going. So, Dorothy's back, and she's still with Danny the Street and the rest of the gang. The gang is out there, championing for the rights, of those who have been treated, cast out from society. And they're all, well, Danny's no longer the Street because he used to be Danny the Street. Then he was Danny the Brick. Then he was Danny the Van. But now for some reason, his pocket dimension has transformed him into Danny the Summer Camp or Danny the Forest because that's where everybody lives now. When you go inside Danny the Van, it opens up this pocket dimension that takes you into this big, gigantic forest. And every single quote unquote outcast, from society, they've all seeking refuge inside of Danny. But Dorothy, she's having some, internal, emotional issues. The episode starts with her actually telling a story about when, she's reading her favorite comic book, which is The Adventures of Casey or whatever. But she told a story about how when she took the candle maker and went and kicked the ass of the supervillain that took her dad's, because remember Niles Coulter, he used to have the necklace that gave him immortality, and he ended up that was weird to me because he gave the necklace to Willoughby in exchange for him saving the Doom Patrol. When Dorothy told the story, unless I missed that, she didn't get it from Willoughby, so that right then and there was crazy. But she ended up getting the necklace back, and she has the necklace that her dad once had around his neck, and she's being, I don't want to use the word bratty, but she's not the most cheerful, these days. She's she stays in a room all the time, reading her comic books. She's giving everybody attitude. She doesn't want to talk to Danny. She doesn't want to talk to anybody else, that's in the forest or whatever. They try to come to her. They try to talk to her. They try to comfort her. But no, she gives everybody attitude. And then she's just just leave me alone, and allow me to stew in my own juices. So then while they're having their big campfire, these metal moths or flies or something showed up, and they infected every single person in the camp. So when they came out to check on it, when everybody came out to see what was going on, all the people that was in Danny the camp, they had these weird metal faces on. And then Dorothy said, she was like, oh, they look like the random foot soldier characters that's in the comic book that I read. And then even the villain in her comic book had came to life as well. So she was confronted with the villain. The villain rolls up on her and he was just like, yo, I want your necklace. Dorothy's like, no, I'm not giving you the necklace. And then, then she gets mad. And then she ends up conjuring, because because Dorothy's power is the whole thing where she can make her imaginary friends come to life. She can bring her imagination to life. That's Dorothy's power. But it's only worked up to this point on fictional characters that she personally creates. So what she did now, she ended up using her power to make the Casey character in her comic book come to life and and pop up into the real world. So now Casey's out in the real world. She's fighting Tampax or Zorax or whatever the villain was. She's getting into a fight with them, and then that's when we find out that the villain is Casey's dad in the comic, and he turned evil and he used to be good, and then now she's trying to fight him off, and she lost her leg in the process, and then Dorothy's just like, oh, you can defeat him and save everybody in the camp. But there's a moment where when Casey actually tried to go up to her dad and and confront him and fight him, her dad said to her, he was like, listen, I don't want to fight you, Casey. He was like, please don't make me do it. And then Casey, the character, she ended up pausing for a second because she said, I fought my dad and killed my dad 143 times in the comics. But she said that he's never actually said the word please before. So now that she's in the real world, the emotion and the emotional stakes of confronting her dad is finally starting to get to her, because they did tell Casey that, because at one point when the people were in the camp and they had the metal, robot faces on, Casey actually tried to blast them to Kingdom Come. But then Dorothy and them was like, don't do that, because if you do that, they're going to die. These are our friends, and death here is permanent. Then they had to tell her that she's a fictional character from a comic book, and then she had to take a moment to grasp that concept, and then it turned into this whole big emotional thing. But now that she knows death is permanent, she's having second thoughts about confronting and, to a lesser extent, killing her father. Because the whole thing with the episode is the projection of the Casey character being confronted with her dad and this whole thing between her and the dad, it's basically a reflection of Dorothy with the whole thing with her father, Niles. And when we get to the end of the episode, Dorothy actually said that, because she was like, listen, she said, my biggest problem was the reason why I was hiding in my room and why I was being such a bitch to everybody and everything. She said that doing certain things, every single thing that she tried to do reminded her of her dad. She even said that she never even did the whole thing where she got her dad's necklace back on her own. She said she actually asked the dead boys, because I was just like, what happened to them? Because didn't she leave with them and they weren't even in the episode? But she said she asked the dead boys to go get the necklace back because she couldn't do it herself. Because she was just like, going to the Doom Patrol reminds her of her dad. She was like, being here in the camp with Danny reminds, she's like, being around all of you reminds me. She's like, and obviously that's why she latched on to the Casey story, because it was a story about a father and daughter. So she was feeling that emotional attachment. But for some weird reason, and I did pick up on this, although Dorothy was the one that created the Casey character, she didn't create the villain, because there was no point in her comic book where the villain was removed from the pages. And it was weird because Dorothy did at one point conjure the candle maker to try to stop like Tambrax or whatever from killing them, and then the candle maker ended up getting defeated. I'm like, how are you defeating the candle maker when this was like, if Dorothy, like, if you're the one that created all this, why is the candle maker losing in your own creation? But that's when it dawned on me. I was like, maybe this particular person isn't the own creation. And then I started thinking, but we'll get more into that in a second. So so then after that, Tampax basically was still like, yo, I want your necklace. And then in the end, he was going to kill everybody. He was going to kill Danny the Street and everybody. And then Dorothy, she was like, fine. She was like, take the necklace. But she was just like, there were so many things I wanted to say to my dad and I couldn't get to say them. But, maybe certain things are better left unsaid. But then she was like, first of all, she said, what you're doing to your daughter, to Casey, that's fucked up. And you're a piece of shit for that. And, go kick rocks. And then she gave him the necklace and then he walked away. He walked away and disappeared to do whatever he had to do. And then after that, so now that Casey's been created, from Dorothy, Dorothy can't put her back into the comic because she said that, the power only works one way. She hasn't figured out how to reverse the whole thing. And now Casey has like this whole big thing that, she's like in the world now and she's trying to like get acclimated to like the real world, quote unquote. She said like once she found out that she was a comic, she did say she wants to meet the person who created the comic book so that person can write a new story for her and her father. And I thought that was actually nice, but good luck trying to find that person. But then, and then after that, after everybody was telling Dorothy, that you need to get out and have some adventures instead of like, reading comic books and putting your imagination into those adventures, you need to go out into the real world and, start living life and doing adventures yourself. And then the group as a whole even said to themselves, they were just like, even us, we're inside Danny the Street, we're in Danny the Forest, we're hiding out from the outside world. And they said that, we're trying to change the world. Like every single day we're trying to do things to make the world better. But the best way for us to change the world is to actually live in it instead of hiding in Danny the Street. They said we can always come back to Danny the Street if we need like a mental break or something like that, but we need to be out there if we want to infect real change. So then Dorothy and Casey now, like they're a duo, they're a team, they get in a car that Danny created, and then, when Casey had said, where are we off to? She said Cloverton. So now Dorothy's going back home to meet up with the Doom Patrol. And that's going to be nice if she actually stays on the show for the rest of the season, because I like having Dorothy in the mix with the rest of the Doom Patrol. And then like finally, who wasn't in the episode, but then finally in the final scene, because in the last episode we saw that Dr. Woman, she had taken Rita Farr's emotions, and then now Tanarax, he has Dorothy's amulet. They walk up to this one particular person who's sitting in front of like an artistry board, and they gave him the necklace. They gave him Rita's emotions, and then he had the Casey comic book on his desk, and he also had a picture that was drawn of Casey as a child being pushed by her father. And then that's when like Tarax said, he was like, I gave the necklace, so he's like, are you gonna put me and my daughter back together? Then he was like, don't worry. He was just like, when everything's said and done, he was like, the ramifications will be great. So whoever this big bad villain is, I guess it's this person that's sitting behind the artistry board. And it's interesting to me because if Dorothy has the power to make her imagination come to life, I'm starting to think that whoever this person is behind the artistry board has the same power. Maybe this is Dorothy's brother that she never knew about or something. Maybe it's Niles Coulter, like as a young man or something like that. I don't know. But it just seems like the way they made it seem was like this particular person who's sitting behind that artistry board, this is the person who's writing this particular season of the Doom Patrol. And he's because remember, even with Rita, he was able to put Rita inside her own movie. So this person has some sort of magic pen or some sort of artistry power. But there is a Dorothy tie-in somewhere, but we're not going to find that out obviously until things progress. But at least we know like who we're kind of dealing with. So I don't know if this is like some cosmic mystic being that just has the power to write people's lives and he just chose the Doom Patrol to fuck with them, or again, if this is like Dorothy's brother and it's going to be a battle between brother and sister, where because Dorothy did kept saying like she has no family left because her daddy's dead, but then it's like, is it a thing where it's going to be Dorothy's emotions versus this guy's artistry? I don't know. It's very interesting, but we'll see what happens when Dorothy actually shows up at Doom Manor in the next episode. And thank you for tuning in. So we're taking a break. Well, I mean, I guess we're taking a break because Christmas is coming up. So Merry Christmas to everybody that celebrates the holiday, and we'll see what happens in next week's particular episode. What do you think about this particular episode of Doom Patrol? We're happy to see Dorothy, Danny the Street, and the rest of the gang back. We did get a song at the end of the episode as well, because they always got to sing. And like, share your questions, comments, and concerns on what you thought is going to happen. Like, what do you think is going on with this guy behind the artistry board, and where things go from here? Check me out on Twitter and or Instagram. Hit the notification bell so you get notified when my other videos pop up, because I do have the Street Fighter 6 beta test that myself and the Egregious did. So that's up on my YouTube channel. Check out my Warrior Nun season finale, series finale. Check out my Stargirl series finale. And next week, we still got some more Doom Patrol as we wait for the new season and for Titans. So until next time, guys, for some more action with the Doom Patrol, take care, read those comic book pages, because we're out this bitch.